This conference will now be recorded.
You guys hear that? Okay,
Yes.
I'd like to call the Invest in Willmar Board meeting to order for Wednesday, January 13, 2021. We'll do a roll call. Swatsky,
Here.
Ammon,
Here.
Conal,
Here.
Anderson. He was a maybe. I'll put him down as not in attendance. Paul.
Here.
Council Member Nelson.
Here.
Council Member Butterfield. I have, and Mayor Marv Calvin.
Here.
I've got 5 voting members and I've got 2 not in attendance as we begin. Any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? If I could get a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
So moved. Oh, Tony.
Second.
Got a motion and a second and to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? All in favor by saying or signaling aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. If I could get a motion to approve the minutes from December 9th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the minutes from December 9th, 2020. Any discussion? All in favor signal or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We'll move on to the agenda. Item number 1. So I believe we've got committee updates. I don't see Rachel on the call here from my screen. Somebody jump in if she is, but I don't believe she's here. So why don't we move to, why don't we go to recreation fields, John?
Yeah, things are, we've met since the last meeting. We just gotten feedback from Marcus and WSN just on some timeline things on kind of a preliminary schedule of, when they'll be ready to go. I don't want to get this term wrong, but I think they're in the design development phase right now where they're putting the project together. And they will be coming to us here shortly with information on the design, and then we'll meet from there. And then hopefully we'll be ready to go through our steps once everything is set. So things will, once we get things in order here, things will move quickly and hopefully, and everything will be good to go. But we're excited, and if anybody has any questions, fire away.
Audrey.
Thanks, Matt. I noticed in our council packet that the Planning Commission had reviewed some things on the land out there, and I just wondered if anybody had an update on that.
I haven't seen any of that.
And
I can add on to that. We got the survey from Bolton and Mink for the land exchange, and the school district and the city staff have been working together. Part of the process is that we have to take it to the Planning Commission and get their approval of the land and making sure that easements and everything like that are corrected. I took it to there, everything was approved, and now it's just back with the attorneys trying to get some of the language cleared up, especially when it comes to certain days of the week. The school district would have priority of the field, basically that practice time area from 3 to 6. So just some of the logistics is getting figured out. And then it's going to be presented both to the council and to the school board for their approvals. They'll come through here first and everything, but that's the path that we're heading to. So I expect it to come to you guys in February, and then to the council at the end of February.
It sounded positive, and so that's why I was wondering, you know, how it was going. And also there was something about additional parking in the future. Is that correct? Is that part of what the Planning Commission approved?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about what some of the future plans of that facility would look like, because some of the questions were about the parking and if there's going to be congestion with the parking. But we assured them that with the parking lots that are at the high school right now, that it will fit our needs for the user groups. But in the future plans in phase 2, I believe that a parking lot is part of the plan.
Any other questions? So John or Rob, do you guys anticipate presenting to this group in February as far as like, and then trying to go through? Do you guys kind of got a timeline on the details or a schedule, kind of a target schedule? I mean, I know that that's hard to, there's some things that you got any kind of general idea of what we're looking at for when we're going to see something?
The design development phase that the architect has done is complete, and it is with Marcus right now to do their cost estimate. So they're working on that right now. Once that comes back, then they'll bring the group back together and explain to them, you know, where the prices come in and what their budget kind of would look like. And then we can get it ready to go out, get it to go out through the process and everything, if it's within the budget amount.
So you guys have
So-
a goal? Like,
Yeah.
are you thinking, are you breaking ground at some time here?
Well, we had to get through all the approvals first, so, and the bid process, but I'm guessing it's going to start going through the process here early next month with you guys.
Yep,
So
that's
we
our
could-
target, Matt.
So we could see some, I mean, potentially this spring, there could be some, if things go through and the council approves, you're shooting for this spring as far as breaking ground potentially? Is that
Especially on the football fields. Especially-
I mean, contingent upon the process and financing and all that? You're shooting for the spring, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, Matt, you know, with high school softball still going on there, so that, yeah, like Rob said, I think that the softball on the south side of the Civic Center probably, yep, that's our hope, that's our goal, is to start that process up in the spring and then get that going. And then, you know, after the school softball season is done, our hope would be to break ground of that, you know, in light, make sure everything goes through the different committees and through the city council approval.
Sounds good, thanks guys. Any other questions? Brian? Brian, I can't hear Brian. Can anyone else hear Brian? As long as maybe he's trying to log in again. Steve, I had a question for you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot if you're not sure, but do you anticipate what, obviously it's a council decision, but do you anticipate the amount of bonding in 2021 that we should, you know, that would help us? Is there a cap? Do you have a recommendation, or just, is there anything that you anticipate from a bonding level, that a limit that you would anticipate? I'll come back to you, Brian. Hang on 1 second.
Not at this point. We've had preliminary discussions with our bond sale that's going to happen next Monday or next Tuesday. We've already proposed that. We'll be over a 10 million bank qualification for tax, and so no matter what we do for 2021. So no, there's no bonding limits for these projects.
Okay, Brian, you want to give it another shot, Brian?
Yeah. Whenever I turn the speaker off so I could answer my phone earlier, it never allows me to get back in. I've noticed that for the last couple of meetings. Two things. I'll just follow up on what Mr. Okins had stated. There are no statutory limits. There are practical limits. And what I want to say about that is that as we bond, given our revenue stream, that if the revenue stream isn't there to support that debt, we probably won't be able to do all of the debt we would like to. And so what I mean by that is we're doing the 5 million, that's fine. We got more than 10% revenue to cover that debt. We do the 6 million for the rec fields, that's only 11 million, and we got more than enough to cover. But if we do the additional 10 for the event center, now we're at 21 million, and that is about where we are in our revenue stream, that we can support 21 million. But we need 10% surplus for those down periods of the year that maybe we don't get as much money, so that we have a reserve fund to pay for it. So that drops us down to more like 18 million. You know what I'm saying? We can't do all 10 of the event center, but we could probably do 8 because we need to have this reserve. And so I'm just going on record that there's no legal reason why we can't do it. There may be a actual financial reason why we can't do it. Same reason I can't buy a $1 million house. My revenue stream isn't enough for the bank to approve that. And that's the limit that we have. To the extent that we can get our bond attorney to say that's okay, and that the bonding people say it's okay, and that the bond buyers say it's okay, that's cool. But I just want to go on record as it's getting tight when we get to the 21 million mark, because of that's how much revenue we have coming in to support the debt. So that's the only caveat I would throw into no restrictions.
Okay, so basically what you just did said in a shorter version, we have bonding enough money for Robbins Island, Swanson, and the fields. That's 11 million. Then after that, we just need to have some conversations to fund the rec center when we get closer here. When they get okay.
When they get closer, and the deal there is that was what the hopes were, so that when these projects kept going forward, that even though we're trying to design a $10 million project for the rec center, that it comes in slices, so that if we have to take 2 million off, we know which 2 million to take off as far as the project is concerned. So that was the method behind the madness.
Yeah, I understand. That's a tough one to slice up, but I hear what you're saying. Any other questions on this?
So I'll go back to what I was just saying earlier on the rec fields. And Rob, I don't know if you had the ability to convey this, but we are working on the land with the school, and we're into it to the point where I think we've got documents. We've gone through the planning commission. We seem to have all the issues resolved, and we'll be meeting at some time in the very near future to nail down exactly the land deal with the school. Rob, do you have a timetable that you had on your calendar that we need to probably at least let the group know?
Yeah, I would say the first part of February, that next meeting, we'll be able to get things through the process. So I would imagine that the land agreement would be completed in February.
All right, so I just want everybody to know that schedule is going on, hopefully soon, that we conclude it. Thank you.
Sounds good. Any other questions? Okay, I will move on to the event center. And I don't see Gretchen unless she's somewhere just not on my screen. Does anybody have an update on the event center?
I can fill in for Gretchen. I know she was having some issues with her pet today. So the event / rec center is in the design development phase 2 that has just been completed. And it's with Marcus, and Marcus actually sent back the proposed cost estimate yesterday. And so we're meeting tomorrow with LSE and Marcus to discuss that in more in depth with some of the city staff to make sure the numbers and everything work out. So after that, we will meet with the group. We're trying to meet next week, either Monday or Tuesday, with that subcommittee group to get their their final look at the project.
Any questions on the event center? All right, thank you, Rob. We'll move on to Swanson Field. Do we have an update on where we're at on Swanson?
Well, our committee met for the first time about a week and a half ago, since July. Laying out the task in front of us is in cutting roughly $400,000. So we had to work through that process of what is most important, or what we think we'll never get if we don't do it now. We have a couple of big pieces to that, meaning the stadium is a big dollar amount. Looking at if we just did the infield turf is a big dollar amount at one field only. Looking at all the subground, looking at should we concentrate on getting the drainage and tiling and that kind of thing, so that that whole environment is benefiting. So right now we had a lot to digest and think about, and a couple of questions that the committee wanted to know about was, all right, if we take a look at the stadium and take off, right now what we have is a beveled stadium, and which means there's 2 wings to the main hub, which actually costs a lot of money with roof and miter and that kind of thing. So we are waiting right now to just see what I just say a standard or straight stadium would look like, not compromising the height, the sight lines, all that, sort of just take off the wings and see what that will be. And we don't know yet what that cost savings will be. We do know from that it is a significant change. If that would be, a great perk into having to decide, I would be really happy. Otherwise, we are still going to have to look at really reducing a lot of things out there. So, if we had $100 million, it's what the project was before us, but we don't have $100 million. And so now we're scaling back and getting bare necessities, realizing that the number one thing is we need playing fields for our kids. So, everything else is secondary in my opinion. So we are waiting to hear about that, as well as turf, no turf. That is an issue that there are many looking forward into the future. Are we going to be left behind if we don't consider that seriously? Other towns our size, other school districts our size. Not that this is going to be the high school baseball field, I'm not saying that, but other communities around, the whole direction and mindset and goals are to be, thinking forward. So we have, it's been interesting. I put it forward because once all this gets, we have to get within budget. And then we, what parts of that do we go out to rebid or all of it? That I want to make sure that we are crystal clear on that part. I just don't see an avenue where if we're thinking we're giving up a spring season, that this is going to put shovel in the dirt by April 1. I don't have confidence in that, but so, you take a look at the season. All along, I've said we can manipulate our schedules easily. We can start July 1 and say nobody plays on that field, and then you have the rest of the growing season or construction season after July 1. We could do it June 15th, could get a few weeks in. But I don't want to be reckless with, we can't push anything forward just because of the process. And second, we're not ready to do it. So Rob, you can please correct me, but I just don't see a timeline that is, it's not what I want, but I don't think it's going to start March 1st by any means.
I would agree with Mary. I think it's going to be more realistic that it's going to be probably a July construction season for them.
Question.
Which I'm fine with. We got to do it, and we can't. I mean, I'd rather have a season in and get a few home games in. And I know we have Baker, but it's when you completely take out Orange 100%, we know that we'd be on the road. So the majority of with all the different teams that play there. So, but I think it's just fair to the clients, so to speak, that participate there, that we've got to be upfront with these people, saying that they, yes, you can schedule or you can't schedule at home. And I think the sooner it comes from, top down rather than, to me, it's crystal clear, but others are in, I won't say denial, but realistically, I just think we need to start telling folks that, yeah, you can schedule at home or you can't. So I guess that's, and I'm not the paid employee here, so I hope somebody does that soon.
Okay.
John, you had a question?
Yeah, one thing we need to think ahead about is depending on when we break ground for the rec fields, if we break ground this after the spring and we start doing the football fields, that puts softball into another area where if they cannot use any of the complex at Swanson, they'll need to be notified as well, the summer softball rec and departments and stuff with their scheduling as well. So just, I guess, FYI, all those parts, softball needs to be aware of timelines as well for their scheduling piece. Awesome.
And I'll just go on record right now. Thank you, John, for saying that, but I'll just go on record right now. The concept that we went to the community with is to improve Swanson Complex. It got bigger when we started looking at, when we put the $2 million before the committee that said, how much do you need for Swanson? That was intended for Orange, and it wasn't intended to completely, we wanted to blow up that whole concept and reconfigure and everything, but we can't because of the constraints that we have given the wells, et cetera. So within the confines of what our mission, we thought, well, if we had all the money in the world, we want to improve softball. There's actually 3 softball fields up there, and then blue and orange. In the big bad world of all the money that you have, we want to do it all. But what we really brought to the people is to, have a stadium bathrooms, shelter, concession stand. And so that is, we have to have a understanding that that is our allegiance too. So when you bring that up, John Conold, you know, I'm not speaking for the committee right now, but if we do nothing at those softball fields, they're not going to be disturbed. You know, maybe there's going to be a truck or two or, you know, construction guys working, or men and women working at blue and or orange. But in my mind, if we don't have the money, they're not going to be disturbed. But that is something that softball has to understand. Now, and I don't know which one you're talking about, fast pitch or slow pitch, but and I don't know if those fields out there are compatible with fast pitch. So, but that's not my area of expertise.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Audrey.
Mary, I was glad to hear you say that. I think, and I know you guys have heard this before, but to me, what you guys were trying to accomplish was a second stadium. And so I have a concern about trying to do all things for all fields kind of thing. And it feels like that's something that the city should be taking bites of in a different way kind of thing. So I guess I'm concerned about compromising the project to try to end up with all the fields done versus, you know, what I heard you guys selling was that we needed a second stadium because Baker and the Stinger Field were in use and you couldn't play. And so that was the reason to go after this and use those local option sales tax dollars for that. So I still am concerned about, you know, ending up with less than what you wanted, and there won't be money to do another stadium. There probably will find money to do lights or to do other things on other fields, but I just don't see us building another stadium. So I said it before, I still believe you should do it right and do what you were proposing to do. So that's, I guess, the question with why it's so divided to try to accomplish everything.
Well, just a little background with that. You know, thank you for that viewpoint, first of all. And that whole complex, for at least a minimum of one time a year, gets used in over 64 teams, communities come to Willmar and have a weekend tournament. It's only one weekend, yeah, I get it, but 64 teams times maybe 10 or 15 kids, times parents that, you know, want to spend the night in a hotel, the campgrounds, maybe fill up the gas. You know what? It's a good revenue generator. So when we looked at that whole complex, and that's why we wanted to say, you know, we can't determine the weather ever, but when you get rain, you want to be able to play. And when you have a weekend tournament, which they have had experience in the past, had to cut off Sunday short, had to do, you know, this, that, or the other thing. So in looking at the scheme of, you know, wanting to do, you know, that visionary work of tournaments and hosting where we could have, you're right, 2 stadiums. You know, you know, the concession stand is the huge draw to Swanson because we have no revenue at Baker. So you want to be able to capitalize where you have your, you know, where you have your buildings. So given that, you know, I really feel compelled to give consideration or airtime to looking at that complete complex because that's a huge event for our community, huge. But yet at the same time, you're right, it wasn't what we brought forward. So I want, you know, the city council also to realize that you're right. If we cut back on something, it's, you know, at the expense of another program promoting our community. So with that, we have to get out our boxing gloves and kind of duke it out in a friendly way.
So thank you, Mary. And I think I'll add on to what Audrey said. And I think Marv has mentioned this too in the past meetings that, I mean, if there's some stuff that the city, if we can get our local sales tax funding going into the project, get as much bang for what we went to the public with, that's one bucket. And this fall, if we can talk to Marv and the council about adding, doing some of the other things that the money didn't cover, that the city, maybe you can make an argument to see if they can put that in the budget this fall. That would be my recommendation. I think that's kind of what I got out of this topic. So thank you for all your hard work, Mary. I know it's a complicated project. And any other comments or questions?
Matt, I would just add that, the project should as closely resemble the question as it can. And, one of the concerns that I have is that we bid this project at the absolute worst time. And construction costs have come down dramatically since when this project was built. And, do you want to maybe consider, as Mary has suggested, that you do a change, which would then change the contract, which then you could go out and get another bid. Now, the city administrator has pointed out in the past that you're going to then have to pay development fees again for your architects. If they were local, they probably wouldn't charge us, but they're out of town, so they are going to charge us. But that actually might save money in the long run. It might be worth looking at as an option. But I agree with you wholeheartedly with your comments that, if there's stuff the city has to cover, we just have to do it.
And Marv, I appreciate that, but we also remember, I'm on both sides of the fence on this one. This is recreation fields. It's our leisure time, pastime. It's important. At the same time, it is park and rec programming, and it's important, but what are our taxpayers and people in our community, we have to look out to what's the most important things. They're going to say our streets need to be taken care of, so I get how hard this is, and that this isn't probably going to be on the top of your list for the city because there's a lot of needs for our community, but so it's difficult for you guys too.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your thought, but we're going to fight for as much as we can get.
So summer, hopefully construction, Mary, and summer and potential complete. What percentage of the project in 21 are we thinking? I'm not going to hold you to it, but just want to have an idea. Do you think we could?
Well, if we were back on the old schedule, we were, let's see, last May, it looked like in June or July, they were going to start, and our architect said it was going to be done December 2020.
Okay.
So,
well, I know.
I don't think it takes that long, according to him, but I think we could get this done, yes, by the fall, but it's just getting to that point.
Appreciate all your hard work. Thank you.
Yep.
I think I saw Rachel pop on. Well, let's jump back up to the Robbins Island. We haven't gotten into Robbins Island yet. Any update, Rachel? And I see Jared might be on the call here too.
I was just texting. I'm sorry. My phone says 5 o'clock. Yep, it says Jared is on right there. So I'm sorry. I have it programmed from Dennis that they're at 5 o'clock. So I'm so sorry. I just didn't get that reminder to ignore those emails.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah.
So if you have, I believe Janelle sent out a proposal from Bolton and Meek. Did you guys get a chance to bring that up or review it? Or
we haven't gotten to Robbins Island, so go ahead if you can do a summary on that.
Sure. I'll just give you a quick overview from last time. The last time I was able to connect with you, we talked about I call it, I guess, phase 1 of a local option sales tax of our $3 million. going towards roads, parking lots, and shelters. And due to the pandemic, a recap that it was just, it was voted on that we were just move forward one step at a time when money is available. So the first phase that has been done is the parking lots, which you have seen. But when we got snow there come mid-October, we didn't get a full finish of painting the lines and et cetera. But hopefully you guys all got a chance to go to celebrate the lights and kind of see the new design of the road. It's kind of hard to judge how many cars can fit in there right now because of there not being enough lines. But we got that done, and now to our surprise, the bids came in a little bit lower than projected, so we still have remaining funds to put towards our other items on our list, which are the shelters and then we were going to do lights with that extra funds and some landscaping. So we got the road, we got the parking lot, and now it's the shelters are the main thing. And then with any leftover funds we have ideas to put it to good use. So with that, since it's kind of a bigger project to for me to be the project manager, and maybe even for Rob, we thought we'd go back to Jared with Bolton and Mink to help us be the leader and manage the next phase. So I think I'll let maybe Jared take over and maybe go through this proposal that we have in front of you. And if there's any questions at the end for Rob, myself, or Jared, will be happy to answer them. So Jared?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, as Rachel mentioned, the bids for the surface improvements, which are nearly complete out there or will be complete this spring, came in below budget, and the remaining funds for the Robbins Island portion of the local option sales tax, the subcommittee has been meeting, and originally going way back to the beginning concepts of this project, there was a discussion about improvements to shelters as part of that, but through that process, those were determined to be left out. And now that the bids came in favorably and work is proceeding on budget, the committee discussed shelters again. So ultimately, the proposal that we put together was based on multiple meetings and discussions with the subcommittee. Although, plans obviously have not been put together for these, but staff and the subcommittee has definitely been doing a lot of legwork, looking into different designs of shelters and things of that nature. And there's been some good discussion surrounding that. Some preliminary costs have been developed. They're definitely within the remaining portion of the $3 million or the budget that was allocated for the project. And I'll just briefly go through it. I know you guys have had it in your packet and you've likely already read it, but looking at two open shelters, open shelter number 1, open shelter number 2, and then Hilltop Shelter building, taking care of that one, and then a remodel of Gurry is what's been identified as far as shelters go. Now, there was also discussions regarding adding some lights out at the park, particularly along the access road, for safety purposes as well as aesthetic reasons. So the subcommittee wanted to further explore that. And so we did identify a preliminary schedule along with the proposal. Now, I will mention that, we're a little behind what we anticipated originally from a schedule, just from the standpoint of getting meetings together and stuff like that. But ultimately, I guess what I would leave you with as far as the schedule goes, that's a good estimate of the duration of how long those various components of the project will take. So that's where I'll leave the schedule. And then also we identified our proposed fee there. So with that, I'm gonna pause and see if the committee has any questions for me.
Anybody have any questions for Jared? Go ahead, Audrey.
Thanks. Sorry, I had to deal with something at home here a minute too. So maybe if I missed this, I apologize. But I'm curious with the sentence that says the city is considering hiring an electrical contractor separate from or outside of the project. And I just wondered, my memory is telling me we had some issues with one of our other projects because they weren't all under the same manager kind of thing. So I'm just curious about that and what the plan is, or why and what the plan is.
Yeah, so that was a discussion at the subcommittee. There's been electricians involved with various components out at the park currently, with building maintenance, things of that nature, as well as throughout the city. And it's my understanding that there is a solid relationship with a couple of them, and it was suggested that they coordinate the electrical components of this project directly and not be included as part of the bid package, if you will. So certainly that's an option to add in, but ultimately, if there's a great relationship with a local vendor that the city has a positive relationship with, certainly it would be just as, I think the city would be just as well off maintaining that relationship if that's important to you. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Doesn't it still have to be bid and fit into the dollars for Robbins Island? I'm still confused with, because I know on the other project, we had, I think, staff do some things, and then we had to contract, and then we had to make adjustments. And so I'm just curious that we can get it done and get it done right, and that the dollars are coming from the local option sales tax dollars. My second question was, if we're doing lighting, are we going to do some security things out there too? That's been talked about, I know, for years with some of the issues that have been with driving, et cetera, and just wondering if that's something that's been discussed.
It hasn't been discussed on our level because technically the parks do close all parks close at 10 o'clock, but we all know that the road that goes around the backside is not going to be a road anymore except for Celebrate the Lights. There is the road that goes over the new road, obviously there. Now that is something that I think the city can consider. I don't even know from the standpoint of our Marv may be able to chime in. You know, we have the security feature at the playground, and I don't even know what information is done on that. I'm not sure if it's recorded, if the police are really watching it. So if there's an interest of the city wanting to have that type of feature, you know, on this new road, we've never been told to incorporate that or to take it a step further. And then it goes back, I guess, to the officer felt like what they would do with it, with that. Are they going to be hooked up to something and watching it or just recording it? So I guess we need more people involved with that.
Okay, my concern is the front side of the island where everybody's would be driving off the tracks and digging it up, and Public Works would fix it, and it would just be a matter of time before it happened again. It wasn't about around the backside, it was about the off-roading that was going on the way out to the back of that. And so with the new lights, et cetera, and traffic coming and going, I was just hoping that we were going to be monitoring more than just the playground.
Sure, I mean, that's something to consider, but that wasn't in the realm of our project.
Rachel, I'll try to answer your question a little bit.
Sure.
So the security that's currently out there is monitored 24/7 by the law enforcement center. Of course, if they've got a burglary in progress, that'll take precedent. But if a complaint is lodged, then they can go back and review that video footage. And that is kept on the server at the city. The other thing that we've done is that, if you recall, we did put in the D curb there, and that D curb will prevent a lot of people from driving over the curb because it'll damage their vehicle. So some of that was done through engineering, so some of that is going to take care of itself in kind of looking at an old problem rather than a new problem. So I had just
And
one
light-
question for you.
and the extra lighting will help too. It won't be as dark, you know, and it'll be right off the highway. And so those people would be more visible. So we hope we were doing some of the job with having the lighting.
Certainly. I just have one question. You know, we just heard from Mary that their project is underfunded. And in the bill, it says that 10% of the monies can be moved around. Has there been any talk of collaboration between the monies between the Robbins Island project and the Swanson Field project, so that we can, you know, one of my goals was that we would not have silos built here, but that we would be working collaboratively. And so has there been any discussion on could some of those funds be moved over to the Swanson Field piece so that they could have an additional, in this case, 200,000 to assist with their projects? And I don't want to get down into the weeds on what you guys have decided, but you know,
It all depends. Yeah, it all depends, Marv, on what our estimates come back this time around for our shelters, because as everyone knows, building costs are not pretty, you know, within the last year due to the pandemic. So for example, I know Rob could chime in here too, but you know, when we just got we haven't formally sent out a bid yet because we don't have fine tune our design of the shelters yet. We just come in with rough ideas. But with that information, went to Ram Construction again and just wanted to kind of know if how much has changed since our last bid, and it's $100,000 plus more. So that's a big difference for our budget. I'm willing to share our funds once our to-do list is done, but I don't think it's fair for the community and fair for us just to stop when we know that we have some other things on our to-do list to do. If we have a leftover 50,000 or 25,000, I'm more than happy to share if our committee is willing to, that we did what we were willing to, or what we said we were going to do for our project. And if there's leftover funds, I would be happy to share with the Swanson Field Committee. But I don't feel comfortable saying yes yet until we get information back on these bids, because everything sounds like it's more now in 2021 and just like it was in 2020.
Yeah, I understand, and it's unfortunate that the wishes of the committee were not forwarded to the council for the council to have that information. So, as I said earlier, I have to step out, so I'm going to step out now.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate it. Any other questions on the Robbins Island project? Go ahead, Audrey.
No, I just want to just speak to that because the wishes were brought forward. It was an action at the council table to change that. So, you know, we're doing it now. But I think the other thing just for us to remember is we can't just move the money. There is a process that has to be followed if we're going to do that 10%. And if that's something that's the wishes, then, you know, if I remember correctly, and Mr. Okins is here when we investigated that, it takes a public, the public has to be able to participate. I don't know if Mr. Okins wants to talk about that process or if we want to just wait, you know, if that was a request or what we're doing, so.
Well, I think, well, to say a couple words, I think basically that once Rachel says their project is complete and they're done, then let's just see what they've got and then let's go down that road. I mean, they're not going to come down to the exact dollar bill. So there's going to be, it might be $5, it might be $50,000, but I think at that point when they're done and they're going to close out and dissolve their committee, then I think maybe we go to Steve and we can try to, unless it's real simple to explain, Steve, I guess we could talk about it.
Matt, it's just it's a ordinance that has to be introduced, and that's just the public hearing and introduction of the ordinance and giving the public a chance to have their input.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Steve.
I think with this proposal, I think we need a vote of action if we can move forward with Jared and Bolton and Mink to start this process of our timeline here to get this ready to go out for bid here come for March, April, but I understand from Rob when we had a meeting that before that we have to have a public meeting with to show our plan. Is that correct?
Well, Rachel, that is, I think, something, I suppose have you guys done a public, it's mainly infrastructure, but yeah, every committee is supposed to have a little open house and invite people over to the fire hall. I don't know if you've done one of those or not, but.
No, we did back when we had the master plan for Robbins Island, and you know, what am I trying to say, the parking lot was essentially very similar design to kind of that that open house master design plan that we had. I have no problem if we did like if we need to do like a Zoom meeting here once we have fine-tuned the rest of our project, and ask anyone to attend, and if they have any questions or anything like that.
What specifically are you wanting one of the board members to take action on? Is there something specific that helps you, Jared?
I guess that we can move forward with Bolton and Mink with this fee that we have that he just reviewed. It's a fee proposal for professional services with the project.
Matt, I'm willing to make a motion. I just want to clarify with Brian what he wants this group to do, and I still am think that there will be clarification on the electrical part, but I'm willing to make the motion if that's what we need to do.
Okay. So this is just financing this. We're not proving any design or any.
Oh, nope. This is just to engage again with, I guess we've already have since our first project was already completed with Jared, am I correct with saying this, Jared? Now that we are continuing this is like another proposal or fee structure to work with Jared and Bolton and Mink.
Yeah, that's correct. It'd be an amendment to the existing contract for the project. Yep.
Brian, how does that, will that just, I mean, these minutes won't get to the council for 2 months. So how does it go to the council from here?
I'm going to say we could put it on the agenda to move it forward. I mean, normally it would go from here to Park and Rec to Public Works to the City Council. But this is a relatively small item to continue a project that the City Council has already approved in essence. Yeah. So I would say it can go directly to the next council meeting and get this thing moved forward.
I agree with Brian. Sorry, Brian. I agree with Brian. I mean, this is financing. It's not really design. And I think at this point, I think everybody's fine with it. If you guys want to go right to the council, I mean, we're not really in the financing and the bonding department, but I appreciate you bringing it to us because it's nice just to see where you guys are at. So unless somebody's not comfortable with that, I think if you can just go directly to the council. I mean, the Park and Rec Board doesn't deal with any financing, and we really don't either. So then if the council members are the financing committee, Audrey, would it go to the finance committee and then to the council?
That's the reason that I asked Brian, because I wasn't quite sure if we're making a motion here, that motion doesn't get dealt with for a long time. So I just wanted to know how this was going to get approved. And if he's saying it can go on the agenda, we have a meeting next Tuesday. So I don't know if that's what he's thinking about.
Yes.
Let's plan on doing that then. Is that clear, Tony?
I think when the Robbins Island group first presented, the shelters were on the plan that we approved. So I think if Audrey makes the motion, one of us can second, we can vote on this and move this forward right to the council.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
I'll second then.
Okay, so I've got a motion on the table from Audrey. Tony seconded regarding having this proposal go directly to the council from this committee. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So we will have that move forward. And thank you, Rachel, Jared. Thanks for all the work you guys are doing. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Have a great night.
Yep,
you.
we'll be in touch once we start fine tuning those shelter designs and getting that out for bid.
Super exciting. I know everybody going out there this year was just thrilled with the progress. It gives everybody something to look forward to. So thanks again for all the work and all the time you guys are doing. Great job, Rachel. Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.
Okay, I don't know if there's any update on the agenda regarding the community center and stormwater. Does anybody have anything?
Well, the community center is attached to City Hall like a ball and chain. And that is moving along at a snail's pace. So unfortunately, there is no forward progress. My question would be is, Mr. Grammons, do we have any idea? Is anybody in contact with Terwisha to get an updated cost estimate on the restructuring of the JCPenney's?
Yes, I've been in contact with them. I've also been in contact with Mr. Okins to get the financing in place. Get a decision by the city council how we're going to fund the city hall and community center, which then leads us to which plan do we like the best. Okay.
Okay.
As we talked about a little bit earlier, the event center potentially may not be able to fund its own 100% project of $10 million. Maybe they got to do 8. And that leaves the 2 million for the community center sitting out unfunded. And that's 2 million of the 10 that the city hall and community center was going to use to build that particular project. So I think we need to talk, at the next finance about how do we finance this given the likelihood of having the sales tax $2 million or not having it, as the case may be, and what sort of impact does that make on the bond and the resulting tax levy if that's something that the city council wants to pursue. So as soon as we can get the financing decision made, which should occur at the next finance meeting and then the next council meeting, we'll be able to then get more direction as to what we can do with whether it's the JCPenney site or the old community center site. We're getting numbers from both the architect and the Willmar 10 group. So we'll be able to look at both of their projects and see what they have to offer at some point in time. But as I probably have emphasized so many times, no sense in getting a lot of, reports and studies and presentations if we can't finance it. If nobody's willing to pay for it, then all those reports and presentations don't help us. So as soon as financing is done, we'll be moving forward on the rest of the project.
Thank you. Mary.
Is there still the appetite? I'm not starting rumors, but is the appetite still there for the Willmar 10 investors, or are we coming to the end of the wick on their patience?
No, I talked to them last Thursday or Friday, and they were getting prepared to have a presentation for the city council on the 19th. But after reviewing the financial side of it, they also kind of agreed that the city council has to decide what they're gonna do money-wise. How are you gonna come up with the money before we, move past that to look at projects? So they're in the process of preparing cost estimates, and they'll notify me when they're ready. And what I'll do is I'll put together their project, I'll put together the architect's project at an equal amount. So if the Willmar 10 come in at $8 million, I'll ask the architect, what can you do for $8 million generally? And then we still have the $10 million, potential project. But it all comes down to, can we finance 8 million, much less 10 million? And that decision really needs to be made by the city council. Go ahead, Julie.
So
You don't think?
to follow up,
Go ahead, Mary.
actually, I just lost my train of thought. Go ahead. I'll
Okay.
think of it.
You don't think that we sent mixed signals to the Willmar 10 and to Tuisha at last night's meeting by not even putting the City Hall task force together?
No,
I'd like to answer that.
go ahead, Audrey.
I think the best thing we can do for all of them is for the council to get the information. We've not gotten anything from the initial proposal, which was to lease. And so if there's other information out there, then I think the full council needs to hear the information and make a decision. The task force was 4 people, and the full council, I think we're to the point, to be fair with the Willmar 10, that we all hear it. And as Mr. Gramitz is saying, we put the project on hold because we didn't have a funding stream. And so we have to figure out what's changed and can we do it? So I feel strongly full
I don't
council
think there's any
to hear it.
question that the full council should hear the information. There's no question about that. I just, if we don't have the City Hall task force in place, then that's another step that has to be determined. And it would have been nice to just, we were organizing committees last night, get it together, be ready to move forward, and with
I'm
the project.
sorry, it was at the council table, and that was the second part of let's let the full council decide and then put it back together.
I just want it to move forward.
Yeah, Julie.
I guess that's part of my backup question, and it should have been the first one, is what is the properties from the Candy Mall, whatever they're called now, Market Town, whatever it is, are they even leasing it? I mean, are we renting? Are we buying it? Are we leasing it? I mean, are they even in the game of wanting to get rid of property? I mean, that's not my lane. I get that, but people are asking, is the Candy Mall owner, are they done with the city of Willmar? Are they just wanting to go away and implode the building? Or people are talking. So, I mean, where is their appetite? Do they care?
Okay, Brian, let's make it quick though. We're getting, I'm not disrespecting Mary's comments, but we're getting off task here. Go ahead, Brian.
We are off the topic, but it's one of our projects.
Right,
Well,
the community center is and it's tied to the city hall. And the original proposal from the Willmar 10 was to lease it for 3 or 4 years and then have the city buy it. And that was appealing to the city council because they could just levy taxes, pay the lease, and we'll worry about the financing 4 years later. Well, really 3 years later, but the point is it could be thought about later. And the Willmar 10 have pulled back from that position. They want to clean, they will build it and we will buy it, which then puts them into the same boat as, the new project, the original project. If we're going to build it and buy it, then we have to have our financing. We can't just levy the lease amount on our taxes. So now we have to borrow the money. And since we have not had a referendum approving the city to build a new city hall and sell bonds for it, we have to do the reverse referendum process, which is go through the process, get all geared up, cranked up, tell everybody we're going to sell bonds. And if we get enough people could be 50 people who signed a petition who want to put it on a referendum. We would then have to wait until the next referendum to vote on whether or not the city can sell the bonds. So even though I would love to be sitting in a new city hall right this minute, this is going to be a long, drawn out thing, depending on if people don't want it to happen. They can force a referendum, which delays it even farther. So we need to go through the process, and the first process is having the city council decide if they're willing to bond for it. And if they are, how much? Are they going to use some savings and bond, or are they going to bond for the whole thing? And then they got to decide, are we just going to ignore the 2 million from the local option sales tax because it looks like it's not there right now, so we can't borrow that $2 million? So these are decisions only the council can decide, and that's why it's on finance.
So you're going to present funding options to the council, then the council is going to decide, do we want to fund it? At that point, then they're going to have to figure out, design it, work with tuition. Does that sum it up?
Yep.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. No, I'm not, I just, like I said, I think that that's important because the community center is tied to that, but the council also came to us to add funding to the community center. So on the one hand, it kind of is the council's project, even though it's going to come through us. Anything on storm? Has there been any new projects? I know
No.
that's okay. Nothing on that. Finally, Brian, you got Brian's still on? Or sorry, not Brian, Steve. I've got item number 4 on the agenda, a financial update.
Yeah, man, there should have been 2 emails that went out late, and I apologize for that. The first one was the graph. The only thing I want to point out, and I mentioned it in the email, is that the average is at 179,000 and change. If you compare that, that's the first full October compared to the first month that the tax was implemented. It's increased. We are in conversations with the Department of Revenue in regards to, I know there's been questions about online purchases. There's no way the state has, when businesses in Willmar sell stuff online versus at their business, there's no separation, no reports available for that. The only report we would be able to obtain, and they're working on it because we've requested it, is online purchases from businesses outside of Willmar who deliver within the corporate limits. So we can get an update on that at future meetings. Also, the second email was basically just an attempt to kind of give a summary status report of the projects on the costs that we've had to date. We've had to use, and we've talked about this before, using cash until we sell bonds. And so now that we're selling bonds on next Tuesday, the amounts that are shown on that report for Robbins Island and Swanson Field will go back into the cumulative total to be able to pay for the soft costs. And that's what we've talked about, paying the soft cost up until a decision is made to do permanent financing for the projects. So if there's any questions on these reports outside of this meeting, just call and I will be available to talk to anybody and answer any questions anybody may have. I don't know if something to add to any of that. I know the discussion on the bonding and the city hall and that is the community center is in those discussions that you just had.
Question, Audrey.
Steve, you said you sent 2 emails. I don't think I've gotten one after the figures with the local option sales tax.
There should have been one with the graph, and then there should have been one late this afternoon on again, we keep working and trying to massage reports that gives the committee the information they want. So if there's changes to it, this is just kind of a status report of the projects and not the complexity of all the accounting that we do internally. So if you find that you have not received a second one, please let me know after the meeting and I can resend that.
Audrey, it arrived here at 3:49, but I'm further away than you are, so you maybe got it sooner.
See, Matt, I think Steve's report, this is Marv again, I'm back, but I think that Steve's report is very encouraging when you look at it. And if you do the math on it, we'll actually bring in $27,924,000. And that's assuming that there's no increases throughout the next 11 years of the project. And so that's a very encouraging report, particularly when, if you listen to what he said at about halfway through his conversation, is that the numbers from October of last year to October of this year have gone up. So we know those numbers are not going to remain static. So a very good report, a very encouraging report, and really a ray of hope that our projects will be able to get back on board.
And if I could just add to the mayor's comments, Matt, real quickly, from July through October, that average is actually a little 200,000. So, you know, the pandemic kind of raised havoc with a lot of things that people were not anticipating. And so as we start coming out of that, I guess that's something that we need to keep watching, is the monthly amounts and how that will affect once bars and restaurants are back open, and if they get open to the full extent rather than 50%. So hopefully as we come out of this pandemic, those numbers we will see rise.
Sounds great.
Steve,
Thanks.
will you repeat the July to October? You blanked out for a second.
Yeah, my comment was, if you look at the last 4 months of actual receipts on that graph, if you look at the bottom, July through October, and you average those 4 months, we're still doing studies on July on why that peaked so high at 240,000. But the average for those 4 months is a little over 200,000. So, and that does not include December, November actual numbers. Those, as we've talked about before, the delay and when we get the actual numbers from the state is always, you know, about 2 months to 2.5 months. So the next few reports will be telling for sure, because we'll be coming out of the pandemic. We'll be having what's normally the busy months of November and December.
Yeah, that'll be fun to see. I can't wait.
Appreciate the comments, Marv. Appreciate the comments, Steve. Any other questions? Obviously, we got some positive things going on here, and hopefully 2021 is going to be a lot better than 2020. So anything else? Otherwise, I got a few housekeeping things and we'll close her out. So couple things I've got here on my notes. Just a really quick recap on our I know everyone knows this, but our priority schedule to design and fund is Robbins Island, Swanson, rec fields. That's going to get us to 11 million. And then hopefully we can get the rec center at 10 million. That would be the next one, which would put us to 21. But at this point, let's stay focused on trying to fund and help move Robbins Island, Swanson, and rec fields. Hopefully we can get those in 2021. I mean, I'd love to see that. I think the public would love to see it. We are over 2 years. In November, we'll be at 3 years from the vote that passed. So I really hope we can get those items done. If we can get the rec center started, that'd be great. And obviously that'll, or at least get everything to the council. If the council at that point, then they'll have some decisions to make based on funding, bonding, and whatnot. So I've got us down for February 10th at 4 p.m. The meeting, no matter who gets an email from Dennis, is at 4 p.m. the second Wednesday of every month, unless you get something from Janelle or myself or Mary. If you have specific action items regarding your project that you want us to take action on, reminder, email Mary, Janelle, and myself, and make sure it gets on the agenda more than 3 days ahead of the meeting, as this is a public meeting that's got to be out there in case somebody wants to, I guess, follow along. So on that note, thanks to everybody. Appreciate all the time and effort that we're putting in. And if I could get a motion to adjourn, I would entertain that. I mean, we can all just hang out here too, I suppose.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
If I Okay, I'm assuming we're good. Thanks. Audrey's got a motion, John a second, and we are adjourned. Thanks again.
Thanks, everybody.